Good afternoon, class. I want to thank you very much for remaining resilient and allow us to go through our session of the day. We'll see how far we can go and be able to put a stop. I'm aware you have a class at 2, and thereafter we will reschedule and see when you can have the next session to complete our classes. Okay. In chapter 4, we want to look at an introduction to digital media. This should be a very short class for less than an hour. In this class, we want, just a minute.
Madam, we have lost you.
I'm here. In this class, we will be able to cover a summary of the following. We should be able to define what we term as digital media, because for any forensic evidence to happen, that evidence must be in digital format. So in summary of today's class is to see what is digital. What do we define as digital data? And we shall see it's data that is stored in binary format, data that is stored in zeros and ones. So we shall then follow it up with a definition of binary data. How do we convert decimal data to binary, binary to decimal? Because this is the language, the machine language that the computers do understand. We'll also look at data handling. We look at analog versus digital, because our core focus is to see how can we digitize any information that we have, be it pictures, be it music. How can we get it from the olden way in which it was stored as tapes, as VHSs, those very olden tapes, to get them onto DVDs, get them onto software, now even take them onto the cloud. We look at the basic, which is our hard disk drive. We'll define it. We will look at its symbols. We look at its components. Where does the power go? What are the sectors? What are the spindles? What are the readers? We will look at each of these cylinders and each of them in detail and their role. We'll describe these components and their uses, because we always set questions on them. We will look at the cables. We will look at the 4 types of partitions that we have, the 4 components and how we do partition our hard drives. We will then be able to differentiate between FAT and NTFS. These are the formats in which we store, or in which the types of files that are on hard drives, or even storage devices, any other storage devices, are always in either FAT format or the NTFS format. So we need to differentiate these two and looking at their characteristics. Again, we always set those same questions where we are asking you at least to describe or to differentiate, give us any 2 items that can help us in differentiating NTFS from FAT. So those key basics should be there. If time would have allowed, if I would have kept my time an hour ago, we should have been able to cover the acquisition phase, such that tomorrow afternoon, we would use that time 2 to 4 to actually proceed on with our hands-on session, or even the tutorial session that we are having. Okay, so allow me to please proceed on to look at our storage devices. So we want to look at what is digital media today. And we've seen digital media is what computers use. It's in any format as long as it's what you can store, what you transmit, what you receive, what you manipulate is what we term as digital media. It's important to understand that we always have data and information. We define data as unprocessed information or facts or numbers, characters, images, sounds that do not have any meaning on their own. Until we start doing the processing, that is when we have information. So information is defined as raw data, numbers, characters, images, sound that are put enough together until it becomes meaningful. When data is arranged meaningfully, then it becomes to us information. Imagine if we just have numbers 20, 30, 40, 80, 70, we wonder what are those? Until someone says, okay, these are results of industrial training of students, A, B, C, D, and this is what these ones need to cover. Fast forward, we want to go ahead and look at, again, digital media. Digital media is what is made or produced electronically and stored in a file. Whether it's stored on a flash drive, it's the one that we actually carry our forensic, the unit of where we carry out our digital forensic investigation. It must be in digital format. The moment it's in analog format, those ones the forensic experts will handle and manage. Our own is anything that is in digital format to add value to it. For example, it can be in form of sound, in form of text, in form of numbers, images, videos, etc. as we have seen. We noted also at the beginning that digital media is always stored in binary numbers, that is 0 and 1. That is the computer language that it does allow. So whether as humans are able to understand the decimal numbers, we understand the ABCD, the digital format of the computer understands zeros and ones. So where you have numbers 0 to 9, the 10 digits, they always have to be converted to zeros and ones to ensure that the computers are able to understand that language. And usually the 0 stands for off, the 1 stands for on. And this is where we usually have some illustrations. I don't know if you've done some bit of architecture that you're able to see when they are drawing some of these illustrations. In case you have something like 1, 1, 0, 1, and they tell us to illustrate it. A 1 starts with up, another 1 goes up, then a 0 goes down, a 1 goes up. So this would represent our 1, 1, then this is for the 0 when it's off, and this is the 1 when it's on. So this is usually at a normal grading when we are illustrating all these numbers in form of the zeros and ones, the offs, the ons, the on, off. So sometimes they may give you some numbers like 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, and to illustrate it, convert it to decimal numbers, convert it to, so all those conversions are handled in that perspective to ensure that what they're able to understand, what a document is able, computer is able to understand is basically our zeros and ones. We have an illustration here of still, of course, we are still talking a lot about the zeros and ones and saying that, you know, the memory cells of any computer or any device always saves them in smaller units, smaller formats that we have, and they're always in zeros and ones and nothing else. They further go on and say these strings, like the ones I was telling you, the 1, 1, zeros, are what will make a combination to give us our ABCDs. And those are the conversions. And usually a combination of up to 16 bits, 16-bit computer items are what will make a string of 16 zeros and ones, a whole combination of them. An illustration, an example is of what we have here. 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 4 zeros, 3 zeros, and 1. This is a string of data. And every 4 of them represent a number, every 4 of them. So they usually split them into groups of 4. So as a 16 block, that is one string made up of 16 of them. So to get to know their corresponding numbers, we always ensure that we change them back to binary, to the decimal numbers. So we get them, see 0 times 2 to the power 16. We start from let me quickly annotate through and show us where we start from. Yes, we start right from here. This is the power 16, power 15, all the way until we get to the power of 0. Just take note of it. This is not minus 16. It is exactly 1 times 2 to the power of 0. So you just go, each of the items are mapped onto each of them. Then this is supposed to be 0 to the power 1. Then this is another 0, 0, 0, all the way until we have a 1. So we need to know where do we have it. If this is 0, then this is 1 to the power 2. Just simple conversions that could be done. Okay, so, and what is the focus here is that we need to get everything in digital format. And that's why you see in forensics, we take some time when we are analyzing, understanding, getting these conversions from digital binary data. We term that as volatile data, data that is still in transit. We can pick on it and carry out investigation. You have to convert them back to know what was that incomplete sentence that someone was sending, what data was being passed on if it's an image. And of course, images that are converted to media have multiple zeros and ones which are combined to get these images. So telling us it's millions of them that get them to us. And that's why we said it's important to convert any kind of analog data into digital format. If you have like a transcript or an in, and they tell you, share it with me on WhatsApp, the most you can do is take a snapshot and share it. Yes, what you've shared now is in digital format. However, for as long as it's not yet in zeros and ones, it's still in analog if it's a photograph, until you take care of it and convert it. So we don't live in a world of zeros and ones. No, the world we live in is full of color, full of sounds. Imagine you have a picture that has been painted and you want to convert it. You may need to scan it. Look at this kind of picture. You will need to scan it or take a photograph of it with very good pixels to convert it into digital format. Otherwise, as it is as a wall hanging, it's a very good analog photograph. And of course, they're illustrating to us the very olden tapes, ways in which people used to have these movies. I don't know if these tapes still, if they still exist. Even these video readers, really, they did their time. Even you see the DJ music that they have and what they use these days, they have really improved greatly, greatly improved the formats in which they are saving all their information. They are digital, they're on social media, they need to make money out of it. That's how you can only claim copyrights the moment you have all this information well stored. And zeros and ones is the focus. These days, they're asking even, what looks better, VHSs or DVDs? No, of course, DVDs are better. They sound even better. They are more consistent. The other ones, if it rains on it, it's dead. Cassette tapes, oh my God. They are dead. The moment it rains, you're gone. Because this was magnetic material that was exposed, and the moment it has dust, you're in trouble. You're forever keeping them within suitcases where they can't collect dust. You're always blowing them up, turning them around to ensure that they continuously keep working. And our focus is to see that we get them in whatever digital format, because that's the evidence we can take to present in the courts of law. So often with analog, each time you copy it, there is a reduction in quality. If you make a photocopy of let's look at a transcript. Make a photo, even notes, even a book, go and make a photocopy, then use a photocopy to make another photocopy. My God, the quality is bad, depending on the quality even of the original handout you picked. That's because we are trying to copy at most infinite numbers of small pixels, which if you don't have proper quality of items, this become a very big challenge. But for digital, you see, for digital, the issues are clear. The more you make copies, there is no difference in quality. Other differences here is that it's not easier to deal with media that is not in, or that is not in binary format, that is in analog format. It's not easy. Copying, the quality is very poor. The amount of quality of loss is equally very high for what is not electronic. So each copy that is coming through will remain the same the moment it is in digital format. Converting, and that is where we are seeing that the process of converting analog data into digital data is what we term as a process known as digitalization. In digitalization, we need to see, what are you using? Are you going to use a scanner? Are you going to use a photocopier? Are you going to use a camera? We are going to see a number of these devices. This is a scanner. This is a digital camera. You remember there are some analog cameras people used to take and they would have negatives. Those negatives are what you will take for development. And I tell you, those negatives, anytime they would get into water, that is it. You have to go back and they take another photograph. The quality was so poor, but these days you and me are able to take, you and me are able to make and take all kinds of photos. Look at how people fill their WhatsApps, Facebooks, Instagrams, and all forms of social media, really TikToks, all kinds of digital formats. Now, anything, as long as it's in digital format, that is what we want to hear. That is where we start from as digital forensic analysts. And that's why this whole chapter is dedicated to nothing but digitalizing, be it music, be it images. We need to see how to get them in digital format. Here they're saying we use a microphone in digitalizing, converting analog into digital. Yes. For CDs, DVDs, we need to know in what format they are in. DVDs, CDs are usually very small, standard 700 megabits. Sorry, these ones are quite small. However, they help us in storing something in digital format. In WAV, that is the format in which you save items on CD-ROMs. However, we'll notice that some of them are in different quality. The kinds of qualities of CDs are always in either read-only memory, or we have the read-write memory. And even the prices are different. When you go asking for a read-write CD or DVD, the price is different. Even a read-write writer of DVDs is different. But also, really, I don't know how many people are still using CDs, maybe for movies. Yes, people who watch movies are still getting some of the items on CDs. Otherwise, the others have already gone on to picking them from YouTube. Others are picking them from Netflix. Once they subscribe, they can have access to most of these items and not on just DVD formats. Okay. Digital files are very easy to transmit. You can always send them on WhatsApp. You can always send them in any form of attachments. And you know, that is why the easier they become to send, that is how we find that the security is equally breached. Viruses are very easy to send, attachments on emails, attach on flash disks. So when you're doing forensic investigation, it becomes easy once they're in digital format. Digital files can be stored easily. They can be retrieved easily. They are much faster than analog filing cabinets. You can manipulate digital files, especially images. Look at the ones people get. People pick them and they're in position to actually even have them. You even add your names there. Have you seen people who want to get a cake if it's their birthday online, and they go and add there their names, happy birthday, they customize it. Look at the cards. Really, I don't know how many people are still buying success cards. That was something that was very analog. These days, people no longer go to post office to send. I don't know, maybe some of you are still going there. In our days, it was very lucrative and very important for one to receive a success card. Today, you want to send your success. In fact, you better send it as mobile money. It will make more sense as mobile money than just having it as what? As a success card. Like even if it's 1,000, someone can buy data and at least some MBs have been added to you. But a paper, very few people still appreciate the need of this paper. The next part we want to focus on is our hard drive, because it's the core, it's the beginning point of where we start our acquisition, the flash drives. If you buy a computer without a hard drive, really, have you bought a computer? Because that is where we'll install our operating systems. Hard drives were invented in 1954, the very first ones by IBM. Nowadays, hard disks are smaller, some a little bit longer. However, the amount of detail of what is stored there, the capacity has greatly improved. They used to range from 10 GB onwards. Really, now we have them in zilobytes. We shall see them, petabytes, terabytes, zettabytes. Some of this new nomenclature came actually after Facebook hit the maximum limit. And I'm telling you, after we are done with the zilobytes, which are 1 million exabytes, a billion terabytes, we will be able to now come up with a new nomenclature. We will cross when the time reaches. We have to keep up to date. So this is how our hard drive looks like. We can draw for you one, we can copy one, and put for you to label them. Where is the spindle? Because it has to read. Where is the reader? Where is the slider? Where is a base casting? Where is the mounting, the case mounting holes? Where are the platters? Those are the small sheets. Where are the ribbon cables? Where are the PATA cables? Where is the SCSI interface connector? What about the jumpers, power connectors, the tape sealers? You need to know where all these actuator arms are, the actuator axis, the actuators. These are the ones that help us in doing the actual reading of data that is stored in these small magnetic sheets within our platters. We need to know exactly what are the components of this hard disk drive. The most important ones are the disk platter. Those are the little small sheets. The stepper motor, we'll be able to see the spindle motor, the read-write headers, as illustrated here. To begin with, we want to define what our disk platter is. And usually we'll give you in the tests, in the exams, we'll tell you, write short notes on the following: stepper motor, disk platter. What is our disk platter? And we tell you always to write short notes. We put for you 2 marks, but 2 marks will add up to something. A platter is made up of the magnetic material in the flat disk part of the drive. The data is stored in a platter. Each set of magnetic particles is a collection of units that we call bits. New hard drive technologies use now thin films and metals. They're now actually glass platters. That's why you see a hard drive is very fragile. You don't go about throwing your laptop here, throwing it here. You injure all these small platters. And once they are injured, that is it. You have nowhere to do your forensic analysis. And that's why we are emphasizing that when you're keeping and transporting these hard drives, because of the fragileness of these disks, that's why we keep them in bubble wraps, we keep them in well-padded covers to ensure that they do not lose the information, you do not drop them down and they break. Our stepper motors, these use the stepper motors for controlling. Our disk platters use the stepper motors to control our read-write header position. That little motor is where the little engine is, and it runs at a power of some up to 12 voltage power to ensure that it can run that little small reader. You try and put your ear on your gadget, you'll hear some noise. Little noise, there's something that is being read, especially when it's reading. It's like, it reminds me of the dot matrix printers. You know those old printers that make noise writing, choo, 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 one by one, or even typewriters. That is the kind of noise that we get with our little motors. But by the time your hard drive is making that much loud noise, you know that really it's outliving its usefulness and it's having challenges. Yes, I can see it's exactly 1 minute past 1. We need to see how at least I leave you with 30 minutes before you go to the next class. So our stepper motor helps in controlling our stepper, our spindles, to see that they do the rightful reading of information from our hard drive. Our spindle motor will help in controlling these platters because the platter keeps rotating. You know, like how you're able to see, it keeps rotating, moving through, and we will see the next slide here that will be able to show us all these small spaces there that we call cylinders, where the spindles are, where the magnetic tapes are, so that we know what is made out of this hard drive. If you're to open it, what is your expectation of what you see there, and can you open it and assemble it? System administration should have been able to help us even understand this even better. So our spindle motor controls the platter, and this motor rotates at different speeds, some at 3,600 all the way to 10,000 RMPs, the rate at which it's running per meter. All the platter moves in the same direction, clockwise, clockwise, or anti-clockwise. They all move in the same direction. Okay, so this is our little illustration here of what would have. Oh, I'm running too fast. I'll need to go back. This is our illustration of how our read and write header works. Let us look at it. So our read and write header, the header reads the writing of information onto the disk platter. When you're saving something, when you're writing onto the magnetic information onto this platter. The header arm is used to write and to read operations. The disk structure is what we have here. On a disk, of course, it's round as we see. It has tracks. Look at those that are in red. We have it as track A, track B, track C, track D. There are different small little tracks. It is divided into smaller sectors. Those little small pizza cutouts, those little small quarters are what we're terming as the sectors, that is B. Look at C. When you open through and start opening the little pizza, those little small intestines inside are the cylinders. Inside the cylinders are where we have our storage capacity, that is our D. So when you save information, it goes right on the cylinders, right in within our storage capacity. So if it is stored and you see a document is this capacity, that shows its storage capacity based on what the cylinder does contain. The tracks. A track we've seen is the HDD, is a hard disk drive that is divided into a number of concentric circles, which we term as our little tracks, those little small circles. And of course, we've seen the sectors. Sectors are those little small pizza divisions, the small ones that you find a pizza or a cake is cut in. A cylinder, we've seen them. These are sets of corresponding tracks on all sides of the hard drives. The storage capacity will show us, it's a formula that we get, and you always mention the storage capacity from, let me just take you back here. Look at where the pink was following. That shows us, sorry, the green the storage capacity. You're just saying the storage capacity of something, this green is equal to, that's why there is a formula. The storage capacity is equal to the number of cylinders times the tracks per cylinder. This is what will give us our storage capacity. At the back of the hard drive, where just next to power, where we had the power source, we had jumpers. Jumpers help us, and we shall see them, and we can even tell you, write short notes on jumpers. What are jumpers? Where are they located? What are they used for? Jumpers help us in the transfer process, making it either a slave or a master. We need to know, where are we picking information from? Where is it moving from, and where is it heading to? Jumpers have 8 pins. We can see them right here in the middle. These are the jumpers that we are able to see here. These jumpers here have a little sash over them. Look at this little light blue. It's a little covering. It's a little plastic that you need to move. You move it from one place, from master to make it slave. That means that gadget is now a slave, and the master is what is picking information from it. Once you attach it and it's an external drive, then you need to make it a slave, so that when you change that jumper there, you enable it to now start sending information all the way to the master, and the master will be able to command it. Then we have our cable section. The cable select, this one here is very important because it's for passwords. The moment you remove it from here and you start your hard drive, automatically it erases all the passwords. That's why you take time, ask people, please give us your password, your password. When they're proving to be hard, you say, it's okay, let us. Okay. Next are the partitions. We are winding up. We just have a few more slides and we wind up. Partitions of the hard drives. We have 4 types of partitions. The very initial one is the primary partition. This primary partition is what we usually term as our drive C. This drive C cannot exist without, a computer can never exist without that initial primary. That's why we call it primary, because it's the very first initial partition that you have on a hard drive. It's where we have our operating system, and of course, it's the primary location of any hard drive. Only primary partitions can be used to boot the operating system. You cannot put an operating system on another drive, like the extended drive, the logical drive, no. It must be in the active drive. You look at number 4. The active drive is the same as the primary drive, because an active drive is the bootable drive where you're running that operating system. Otherwise, without this bootable drive, without the drive C, without your primary partition, you do not have anything that you can say, I have a storage or I have a computer. You can't see its capacity. The primary drive must be there, and it's always initially C. Thereafter, you can add on any other partitions. Sometimes you can decide, let me divide, maybe you have 1 terabyte of storage capacity. Let me divide 1 terabyte for C, 1 terabyte for D, or you can say, let me split it further into E and F and G, it's okay. All those are extended partitions. A hard drive may contain 1 extended partition or even more. You can subdivide them into smaller logical partitions as need arises. So our logical partition is where we will also store our Linux next operation, especially if you want to have 2 operating systems. If you want to have Windows and you want to have Linux, you put the Windows on C, put your Linux on D. That will now be termed as our logic partition. I advise you as IT experts, really by now you must be having these two partitions. In case one fails, you always run and start your computer from Linux, because Windows is prone to several security risks, several attacks online. That's why Linux helps us in recovering any information that we have, but it's always run on our logical partition. And of course, number 4, we've seen that our primary disk is always the same as our bootable disk, which contains our active partition or our operating systems. And for Windows, that is the primary one, as we had already mentioned. To wind up, we want to look at what is NTFS, the filing systems in hard disk drives or in storage devices. FAT stands for File Allocation Table. That is for the olden computers. The modern ones now have NTFS. NTFS is the new technology filing system. We just want to compare these, as we mentioned earlier, right from the beginning, that we always ask you to at least give us some 2 differences between FAT and NTFS. FAT, which is a file allocation table, does not have security. It is not secure at all, while NTFS has lots of security components on them. FAT is usually run on partitions, meanwhile, having maximum sizes of 32 GB. I'll give you an example of what is FAT. Look at your flash drives. All of them are FAT drives. And that's why you can never partition them. Have you ever partitioned a flash drive that this is part A, call this part B, then a part D? No, a flash drive is one, assume, even if it's 2 GB, even if it's 64 GB, that is it, because it is FAT. NTFS, that is where we have our hard disk drive. You can always partition them into smaller sizes, as we had seen and as we shall see in our next slide. FAT does not support data compression. You cannot compress the data on a flash drive. No, it is there and that is it. While for NTFS allows us to compress its data. FAT does not support disk quarters. You can't divide it into smaller quarters. NTFS does it, just like what a pizza does. You divide it into small quarters. Windows OS are usually compatible, or FAT are usually compatible with Windows 95, 98. The olden ones are the ones we associate with FAT, our file allocation table formats. While the NTFS are the modern ones from the 2000, the Vista. By the way, for Windows, we've now gone to Windows 11. That was received last year. So every year they keep providing support until they say, changes are too many, the hackers are done us so bad, let us now come up with a totally brand new operating system. So that is the difference between our FAT and our NTFS. Okay. We want to look at the different cables, because when you're doing forensics, you're doing the transfers, you're doing the acquisition, you are touching. You need to have these cables with you. Remember, these are part of the cables that we always attach in within our files with us, as that forensic bag we go with. We have the IDE, we have the SATA cables, we have the SCSI. Let's start with IDE. IDE is the same as PATA. IDE in full is integrated device electronic. PATA in full is parallel advanced technology attachment. These ones have 40 pins. We can ask you write short notes on the following, like in the last year's exam. We told them, write short notes on the following, PATA and SATA. You didn't see. PATA, people didn't know what it is. When we tell you PATA, first put it in full, 1 mark goes there. Then other marks will go into describing. Do you know that it is 40 pins? Do you know its transfer rate is 133 megabits per second? When it's installed, this type of hard drive ensures that the jumpers are correctly configured. If you have 2 devices connected, one is connected to the IDI controller, then one must be a master and the other is a slave. And remember, that is at the back of your hard drive. Look at the cable connectors and see, which one do I have? Is it a 40 pin? Look at this one. This is the back of a hard drive. This is the power cable, the PATA power. These are the jumpers. Look at the little metallic sheath here. Let me further annotate on it and you see. Look at where the jumpers are. Our jumper is here. This is for the whole jumper section. However, look at where the jumper is here. This is for passwords. Remove it and you see if you don't forget all your passwords. Put it here. This one is for the master. You put it here, you make it for a slave. You remove it, it forgets all the passwords. So these are our jumper components. This one we've seen is for the power cable. You attach it in here, put it into power. So depending on where it's picking its power from, look at the power cables, the PATA cables. This is the 40 pins. These are 20 up, 20 down, giving us a total of 40 pins. So this is the kind of cable we call the PATA cable. You must have it because at any one time when you're doing the transfers, you will attach inside here, attach to yours, the reader, and that is it. You transfer information. But of course, it must have power. Without receiving power, this hard drive cannot be. It's not like an external drive. No, it needs power as well for it to be able to start reading because of how I've told you, it has all the spindles, the motors, all of those need power, small voltage to go there. All right. We want to go ahead because we want to make sure that we are in time for our next class. And I want to thank you very much for being very patient as we are completing through our chapter. Next, we want to see, we've seen our IDE card, PowerPoints are for the SATA. Sorry, no, for the PATA, that is the Parallel Advanced Technology Attachments. The SATA is another one. SATA is smaller for it. It only has 7 points. It has 7 pin connectors. It's a serial advanced technology attachment. It's the latest high-speed type of hard drive connectors. Data transfers are higher, of course, from 133, the old one, to now over 300 being the minimum. Yes, we can see it is faster than the old ones, IDE or the PATA. These are our SATA cables. A moment, please. Our SATA cables here are the latest hard disk drives, and they use and are using this type of interface. Look at the outer bit of them, as they are faster than the old IDE interfaces. The SATA socket power connector and data cables are shown here. Of course, you connect them onto the small motherboard to ensure that it picks this little small power, which will cause our hard disk to be able to run. So you need to always have our PATA cables and SATA cables. This is an example of our SATA cables. 7 pins only, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is it. The other ones had up to 40, 20 up, 20 down. So at least you should be able to differentiate. If we bring for you a cable and say label it, you should be able to identify it. The third one we want to see is what is quite most recent, is the Small Computer System Interface, SCSI cable. And of course, you must always have all these cables, the PATA, the SATA, and the SCI. All these cables are very, very important because this, in case you go to do a forensic investigation on an old computer, where do you start from if you didn't have the PATA? And you say, no, it is SATA and SCI. No, all of those came from PATA. So you may find some old institution or organization having computers that are running on the PATA or the SATA. So our SCSI, the Small Computer System Interface, has more pins than all the others, 50 to 68 pin connectors. Its transfer rate is very high, 600 megabits per second. They require an adapter, an SCSI adapter card, to be able to be connected to a system. Look at the adapter here. This is the card that you'll have to install into the machine if you're to buy one. Nowadays, most computers do not use the SCSI because they are the olden ones. The new ones we've seen are the SATA, the serial advanced, the serial advanced technology attachments. That is the kind of cable that we have. Okay, we should be now in position to go ahead to look at what are some of the problems we face when the main problems created in hard disk drives. If you find a hard disk without operating system, forget, you don't have a computer. You don't have a hard disk, it can't read. Sometimes this hard disk fails. We've seen if you drop it down, it fails. And whether it's by mistake, whether it's intentional, that's why when you're buying a laptop bag, buy one which is cushioned, one which has some real serious cushions, and put some books to cushion your laptop. Because in case it drops down, it shouldn't injure it, because those are the biggest problems that we face. Here we want to look at sizes, and sizes are serious because size is all we have for hard drives. Why? When we are doing acquisition, we shall look at the RAIDing component. In the RAIDing component, you want to divide it into smaller bits that are manageable. So when pure chasing of a hard or casing of a hard drive, the term megabytes, gigabytes, you need to know what you're buying. What is your capacity of your device? It's either megabyte, start from bits, zeros and ones. 1,000 bits will give us 1 kilobyte. 1,000 kilobytes will, so 8 bits will give us a byte. 1,000 bytes will give us 1 kilobyte. 1,000 kilobytes give us a megabyte. 1,000 megabytes give us 1 gigabyte. We go on. 1,000 gigabytes give us a terabyte. 1,000 terabytes, take note, it's not terabytes, it's terabytes, R. 1,000 terabytes give us a petabyte. 1,000 petabytes give us an exabyte. 1,000 exabytes give us a zettabyte. 1,000 zettabytes give us a zotabyte. So these are the zotabytes. That is where we are. Zotabytes, look at the numbers of zeros. Ooh, and they go on and on. Those are the most recent ones that Facebook and other social medias, especially those that are storing images and all other items, are having. May God bless you and have a nice lunch. So we will be able to proceed accordingly such that you can be able to come up with our, you can be able to proceed on. I hope by tomorrow, 2 o'clock, we should have our session. If we fail to have it at 2, we'll see if we can have it maybe at 3. But at 2 o'clock, let's please log on for our hands-on session. But I know that you're owing me a chapter 6. The evening class covered it yesterday. We should be able to cover it as well. So have a nice afternoon and may God bless you. Have a nice lunch.